This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming Signy Coleman. Signy was the object of Huey Lewis's desires in two classic music videos. You may remember her for the videos for Heart and Soul and I Want a New Drug. And I grew up on those videos like a lot of people did watching MTV back in the day. And Hot August Summer has just got even hotter today because I will be talking to her. And it's going to be great. And that's not all she did. I mean, she guest starred on so many classic TV shows as well. The new Mike Hammer, Knight Rider, The Facts of Life. She had a recurring role on Jake and the Fat Man. She has been on soap operas like The Young and the Restless. She was on The Flash, Silk Stockings, The X-Files. It just goes on and on. And she's got her own podcast called The Significance Podcast with her and her co-host Tyler. And it is going to be great to have her on today. I can't wait. I was so lucky to find her on social media, and it's going to be a great conversation, and I am just so looking forward to it. She's an icon of my childhood. Also, rest in peace, Danielle Spencer, who played Dee on What's Happening, and its spin-off What's Happening Now. Sad, 60 years old. She fought cancer as long as she could, and it's really sad that she's gone now. So yeah, here is my interview with Signy Coleman.
Hello.
Hey Signy, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you so much for your patience, Tommy. I really appreciate it. I was eating something as simple as Greek yogurt and, with a spoon, and all of a sudden one of my crowns popped right off
Oh,
on the lower right-hand side of my mouth.
I
And
hate
I'm
when
like,
that
well, that's
happens.
great.
Yeah.
Bad news. Anyway, I'm here and I'm ready.
Oh, this is such a great honor. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh my gosh. No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. I watched a number of your podcasts and you're great. You're
Oh,
fabulous.
thank you, thank you. So going back in time, I heard you say in a previous interview that you began as a ballerina. What age did that start?
I think I was 6 years old. I grew up in a very rural part of Northern California, right in the Pacific Ocean, a
Mm-hmm.
little town called Bolinas, which is just absolutely gorgeous. It's so beautiful there. And I was very clumsy as a child. I mean, I would trip over a flat leaf on the sidewalk, no joke.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother basically enrolled me in ballet just, to teach me some coordination. And I took to it like a duck to water. And by the time I was 14, I was on a full scholarship at the San Francisco School of Ballet, which is where the San Francisco Ballet Company, dances out of.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically apprenticing me for the company. So I had a number of years doing that. But I got to a point when I was 16 that I just looked at the shelf life of a dancer
Mm-hmm.
is very short as a lead dancer with a company or as a prima ballerina. And once that career is over, you have two choices, and that's either to teach or choreography. So and also, and I mean no disrespect to anyone, if you want, it prepped me for my acting career because it is a cutthroat, highly competitive. Um, it's just dancers are, there were girls that they brought in from all over the United States
Right.
that they put on scholarships to, watch and teach and potentially prep them for the company as well. And there were girls that would just as soon push you down a flight of stairs if they were going to progress, one step up the ladder, get you out of the way so they were that much closer. And just sort of a very, lots of issues with anorexia and bulimia, bulimic,
Mm-hmm.
and living on diet pills and caffeine and smoking. And I grew up in a
God.
pretty, for lack of a better description, organic environment in Northern California. And So that just sort of went against, a migraine in the way that I was raised by my mother and father. So I quit cold turkey, and my mother wouldn't speak to me for 6 months. She'd always wanted to be a dancer, and when I did so well, it was sort of a continuation of her dream, because I was dancing in productions already with the
Mm-hmm.
company in Nutcracker Suite and Swan Lake. So it really broke her heart, but it taught me how to move, and paid off well when I broke into modeling. Was able to do not only print work but runway as well, all over Europe. That served me well, and the discipline that goes along with being a dancer was very easily applied to any other form of art, such as acting. So,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved it, and I still love to dance to this day. I have dance parties in my kitchen all the time by myself with my dog and cat. So
That's
that's how
awesome.
that started.
That's awesome. My mom danced in her early years. She was almost a Dean Martin Gold Digger dancer.
Oh, that's a great story. Now that's a story I would love to hear. Good for her.
Yeah,
That's
it's
wonderful.
it's kind of a sad one, but yeah, that's what she did in her early years. Yeah. So did you do any modeling growing up?
Um, well, I guess I'm going to preface this by saying I was a diehard tomboy growing up.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I grew up in a very rural part of Northern California, and about an hour north of San Francisco, right on my beautiful Pacific mother, the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And I used to hide my shoes as a kid so I could go barefoot everywhere. I lived in, grubby, they were clean but stained because I was always climbing trees and out in wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
Oshkosh bagosh overalls or Levi's with a knit hat. And my mother would get so mad at me. She'd say, I know you hid your shoes. And I go, no, I just don't know where they are, Mom. I can't find them. She's like, you're going to have to put on shoes eventually, okay? You can't go to school barefoot.
Yeah.
You have to wear shoes. So I was a diehard tomboy. I grew up riding horses and climbing trees and combing beaches. Um, but there were photographers that approached my mother from the time I was very young wanting to photograph me. So without even knowing that, once again, I was sort of being prepped for being in front of the camera in one way or another. There were a number of photographers who photographed me, and not that we did anything with it, because my mother really wanted us to have a very natural, very laid back, fresh air country childhood growing up. Uh, but I had photographers once I got into high school that were always approaching me, and
Mm.
I was accepted to UC Berkeley. My father, my grandfather, and my sister all graduated from Berkeley. So it was a bit of a family tradition. And I was down in Union Square one afternoon with two of my girlfriends. I think it was like a Friday afternoon or something. And this woman approached me, Marcia Jones, British, almost like 6 foot, just tall and lanky and beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
and said, excuse me, pardon me, I don't mean to intrude on your conversation, but I just wanted to approach you. Have you ever considered modeling? And both my girlfriends jumped in. They go, we've been telling her that for years. My gosh, she should be doing it. She really should. We tell her that, she should be doing fashion shows because she moves so well and this and that. And she said, well, that's what drew my attention to you, watching you walk down the street, the way that you move. And I kind of laughed. I said, well, not really, because at that point, I still sort of considered myself to be a tomboy. I wasn't hiding my shoes any longer, though. At that point, I love shoes. So, um, anyway, she gave me her card, and I took it home. And my father, who was a very prominent architect in Northern California, said, oh my God, Marcia Jones. I designed a home for her and her husband in Belvedere, which is, in Marin County, which is the county that I grew up in. So he called her, and I went in and took a meeting with her, and I was going to be starting my freshman year of college, and they signed me immediately. And a week later, an agency from Paris came through looking for new talent, and they signed me immediately. And 2 weeks after that, I had a ticket to Paris.
Wow.
And I said, my father was like, well, what about school? And I said, hey, listen, okay, let me weigh these choices here. Working my butt off at UC Berkeley, or going to Paris and, traveling all over France. And he kind of laughed. I said, we'll just postpone it for a bit. So off I went to Paris. I'd never been to Europe before. I did not speak French. At that point, instead of flying directly into Paris, she flew into Brussels and took a train from Brussels into Paris. And that was a very interesting adventure and story. And I just busted my butt. And once again, as I said, that the discipline that I learned from dancing, because classical ballet is very, very disciplined, carried over into a modeling career and then segued into acting. And I did very well because I could do, I did a lot of runway. Now, granted, I was a bit short. The girls that do runway, particularly in Europe, are, they're tall. They're 5'11", 6 foot, and I was only 5'9". So, but I still managed to do not only print, but runway as well. And then I booked a couple of French commercials as well. And my agents kept saying, we think the writing's on the wall for you, that you really should be an actress. Every director that you work with is very complimentary about, your talent and your energy in front of the camera and your ability to improvise, which I strongly recommend to anybody if they're ever considering going into acting. First of all, don't, because it's a really tough business, number one. And number two, taking any type of classes on improvisation and, comedy, or because comedy is a lot harder to do than drama, in my personal opinion.
Right.
So I did really well. And then on one of my trips back, I'd base myself in Paris for 6 months. I worked all over Europe. I worked in South Africa, Italy, Germany, all over France. And that was just in Spain, incredible experience, planes, trains, and automobiles all over the place, and met some really phenomenal people. And when you go to Europe, when I went, at any rate, it really broadened my perspective on everything. When you immerse yourself in another culture, and and food is hugely important to me as well. If I hadn't become an actress, I would have become a professional chef. And there's so much to be said about learning about a culture through their food and their customs around food. It really just cracked, my perspective wide open. And I'm so grateful that I had those experiences. I'm also a crazy museum person, so any city or country that I'm in, I make a point of scouring as many museums as I can.
Yeah.
So I came back from a trip, and my modeling agent, I didn't even have a theatrical agent at that point, called me, Lynn, who was also British, Lynn Pinkerton, and said, darling, you have this, I guess you would call it an audition. It's not a go-see, because when you're modeling, an audition is called a go-see because you go and see the client to show your portfolio and meet them. She said, for this thing that's going to be coming on today, a station called MTV or something of that some sort, for this band called Huey Lewis and the News. So oddly enough, Huey's mother, Magda, lived in the town that I grew up in and was very close friends with my mother.
Wow.
They were besties back in Bolinas, California. And I grew up watching Huey play at the community center when he was in a band called Clover.
Yeah.
So, he's 10 years older than I am, but, we were all down at the community center. They had Bolinas is an incredible melting pot for amazing music, because a lot of artists from the Bay Area come to Bolinas to perform at the local bar Smiley's or down the community center. Without any advertising or whatever, they just show up. And, I've seen some incredible people while I was growing up there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know him personally, but I knew of him because we were, from the same place. And even though he went to school in Princeton, he went to private school, he was a local Bay Area guy, and all the band members are, all local Bay Area guys.
Right.
So I went on this interview, and she said, oh, by the way, darling, they're looking for punk rockers. So I said, well, Lynn, I don't really fit that bill. I'll put on a pair of fishnet stockings, some stilettos, and a leather miniskirt, but I'm not going to put safety pins in my nose or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Once again, no disrespect for anybody who's a punk rocker.
Yeah.
But in my mind at that time, that's sort of how, and I don't mean to stereotype anybody, but I walked into this interview in way downtown San Francisco. I can't even remember where it was. This big warehouse, and I walked into a room of 30 of the most hardcore punk rockers
Yeah.
you've ever seen, with the mohawks and the skateboards and the shredded shorts, and I was halfway across the room to go to the sign-in sheet, and I said to myself, "What the hell am I doing here? This is not what they're looking for." So I turned around to leave, and this door opened, I guess, where they were doing the auditions, and the director walked out, David, and he said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Who are you? Where are you going?" And I said, "My name is Signy Coleman." I said, "But I don't think I'm what you're looking for." And he goes, "Oh, yes, 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 we are. We're looking for a girl that's the complete opposite of all these kind of crazy characters at this party." And he said, "Can I bring you in right away?" And I said, "Sure, that's fine." So I went in, and David Rathod, who's just a lovely human being, he's
Yeah.
a director. And I don't remember who else was in the room because it was many, many years ago. Michael Wheel might have been in there, the producer. And they played the song Heart and Soul, and he said, "Can you dance?" And I said, "Oh, can I dance? I'm born to dance." So I danced, and they were, putting everything on tape. And then he said, "Pretend there's a really good-looking guy across the room and flirt with him with your eyes." And I laughed like a piece of cake. Little experience with flirting from across the room. I'm just kidding. I think any woman is pretty capable of doing that.
Yeah.
So I did, and they put it on, and he couldn't thank me enough, and he, asked me questions about my background and what I was doing, and I told him I was actually getting ready to go back to school or start school, which I put on hold. And he said, "Thank you so much." And by the time I got back to my apartment in Sausalito, I had a call. Back then we had answering machines from my agent telling me that I'd booked the part on this. And we all know what MTV did. So,
Yeah.
that hit the airways. It exploded. And actually, instead of starting school, my people started calling to audition me for commercials in San Francisco. So I booked a couple national network commercials. And off to Paris I went again. And when I came back, they wanted me to do the second video. I Want a New Drug. And by that time, when that hit the airways, my agent started getting calls from casting directors in Los Angeles, saying, "Who's the girl? We'd like to, read her for, a guest star and blah, blah, blah." So I flew to Los Angeles one day. I auditioned for 5 things, one of which I booked, which was Stacy Keach had the Mike Hammer detective series that he was in.
Yep.
And I booked a guest star of that, playing, of all things, a French maid. And because I had mastered, the French language and dialect. And Stacy was just a wonderful human being and really encouraging. And he said, "You got to move 1 or 2 places. If you're going to do this, lady, you got to go to either New York and get into a really good class, or you got to move to LA and get into a really good class." And I was signed in New York with an agency, but for some reason, I traveled over here. For some reason, New York seemed frightening to me because I had girlfriends that had gone there and had just been chewed up and spit out by the machinery, the modeling industry there. And so I was a little wary of that. So I chose LA. I packed up a U-Haul, and my sister at that point and her husband, my sister Bethany Atherton and her husband Muir, were living in Pasadena. And I moved in with them for a month until I got settled. I signed with Nina Blanchard for modeling, started supporting myself modeling. It saved a lot of money too. So I was very good, and then got myself into the Loft Studio, which was Peggy Fury and Bill Traylor. And it was considered comparable to the Actors Studio in New York.
I know a lot of people who were in that class.
Yeah, well, a lot of people. Sean Penn was there when I was there. His brother Chris. Meg Ryan had just come from As the World Turns.
Do you know Marie?
She left the soap she was on. Yeah.
Do you know Marie?
A lot of
Marie Lauren.
I'm sorry. I don't know her personally, but I know of her.
How about Corinne Boyer?
I know of her, but I don't know her personally.
Yeah, John
but
Philbin.
I know a lot of people came through. Well, Peggy was great because we all had keys to the studio, and we were always there rehearsing,
Hmm.
scenes that we were going to be putting up in class, and playing around, doing different, working on monologues, working on scenes, helping people, helping each other, set the stage for when they were going to do their scenes the following day. So it was really a community of really incredible people, and I think it turned out rather well for Sean Penn,
Hmm.
and Meg
Yeah.
Ryan. So, and within, like 2 months, Huey got me into Huey and his manager, Bob Brown, who is Huey and Bob,
Yeah.
the whole group of, the Huey Lewis and the News Gang. They are all just the loveliest human beings on the planet. Huey is
I
one of
know
the most down to
Mario.
earth
Yeah.
people. Mario's a friggin' doll.
Yeah.
Bill is just a doll. They're all really, really incredible, lovely. Sean, Bill Gibson, John, they're just Johnny, just really great people. So they got me my foot in the door at ICM, and I ended up, I can't remember the name of the agent. It's been so long, but like I was a tiny fish in a huge pond, but they managed to get me out on some stuff, and I booked some more guest stars, and then I auditioned for Soap Santa Barbara, which is a great training ground for a newbie in the industry. And I was on the show. I got that role for a year and a half, and I really cut my teeth on that
Hmm.
show. And then it just went from there. Series with Rick Springfield. I started doing, I did some feature films,
Oh
and
yeah. We're good. We're
not to go to the soap stuff, but I did really well. So
yeah. So
anyway,
so
that's how that started.
so yeah. I mean, I'm born and raised in San Mateo, and my dad was a musician in the Bay Area, so he raised me on all of like Bay Area rock, and
It's
I've always been a
such
huge.
good music.
Yes, I've always been a huge Huey Lewis and the News fan. I still have the VHS tape of all their music videos, the video hits. Used to watch it over and
I
over
love
again
it.
as
I
a
love
kid.
it. I love it.
Yeah, and I love the two videos that you were in. Yeah, Heart and Soul. I mean, that video is very relatable because how many times, especially back in the day, you'd go to a house party or a nightclub and you'd see a room full of wackos and oddballs,
Oh
and then you
yeah.
find that one person you connected with and you leave with them. You know, it's so relatable.
No, it is relatable. And the thing is, I love that about the Bay Area. I'm so grateful that I grew up in California in Marin County. And it's such a melting pot of different people,
Yeah.
and everything is at your fingertips. I mean, even from culturally, in terms of the music scene, the arts, theater, ballet, symphony, rock and roll, jazz, like you name it. It is just such an incredible melting pot of so many people,
Oh yeah.
with various backgrounds. And as I said, I'm really grateful. But the music scene there is phenomenal, phenomenal. And I'm very much the same way. I mean, in high school, if should probably sit down someday and write down all the concerts and all the different artists that I saw, from Billy Idol to Cool and the Gang to
Mm-hmm.
the Beastie Boys to, I mean, Huey, the list goes on and on. Boz Scaggs. I mean,
Yeah.
so many. It's just such a variety of different types of music, and each one just as good as the next. So, really grateful for that experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Steve Miller and Journey live. My dad back
Oh
in the
yeah.
day used to go to a day on the green. He saw Ronnie Montrose and Gamma there, and so many great Bay
Oh,
Area
fantastic.
musicians. Yeah,
Oh yeah, Journey in Boston, two of my absolute favorite bands. Bad Company, probably my Paul Rogers is just, I think, one of the greatest vocalists of all time. I just think he's phenomenal. But yeah, a lot of just, AC/DC, Aerosmith.
yeah,
I just Steve Miller, I love. Just you throw a pebble and you'll hit some great artist. Seriously.
yeah. So, like, at the end of the Heart and Soul video, when Huey's opening all those doors, like, what was really behind those doors?
It was nothing. It was a blue screen.
Oh, okay.
Um, so we just had to, we had to. They told us what was behind each door, and we had to react to it. And we shot that in a loft warehouse,
Uh huh.
once again in downtown San Francisco. Um, all of it. And then, of course, in I Want a New Drug, all San Francisco location stuff, Sausalito on the ferry.
Right.
And then, of course, the San Francisco Bay on the speedboat, which it was bloody freezing that day, too. It looks like it might have been a beautiful, thank God it was at least sunny that day, but it was very, very chilly to say the least.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, they had blue screens, and so we would just pretend that what was there, and he'd snap his finger, and that's when we would react and pull back, and then slam the door. So
Wow.
it was fun. It was just, we all had so much fun. It was just, and so many of the people in the party all knew each other from the local San Francisco Bay Area scene.
Yeah.
So it was like a bunch of friends getting together, with a camera there. It was just a complete and total blast. And Huey, who is, I think he's got just an incredible voice, is a huge Cole Porter fan.
Yeah.
So in between shots, when we'd have to do, come roundy round, um, to light it, he'd entertain all of us by doing a cappella Cole Porter songs. And I
Wow.
mean, he was just knocking them out. It was great. It was just really a fantastic experience. So
That is
a
so
lot of fun.
awesome. Yeah.
And I
That,
remember after we had done Heart and Soul, they performed New Year's Eve at the Cow Palace one night. And of course, I was invited with a group of friends and, all access tickets. And we were, everybody was back in the green room and they were getting warmed up and they warm up, singing together a cappella, which is incredible to be in a room when they're doing that. It's such, the sound vibrations are so powerful. It's just phenomenal. And then they were trying to talk me into getting out on stage with Huey and singing with him because
mhm.
we would play around doing baby, what is it, Smokey Robinson's song, Baby
Cruising.
Let's Cruising away
Yeah.
from, and I'm like, you are not, they were trying to drag me out of that stage. I'm like, I said, I am pretty fearless, but you are not putting me in front of thousands and thousands of people and trying to get me to sing. It's not happening. And to this day, I regret that I didn't do it. It's something I could have checked off my bucket list, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel confident enough in my ability to sing. So, I mean, I've got a good voice, but at that point, no. But
Yeah.
it was fun to be there nonetheless.
It took me years to realize you were the same girl in the I Want a New Drug video because in the Heart and Soul video, you're very cute and bubbly. You almost look like a 1940s old Hollywood actress, glamour girl in that video. Whereas in I Want a New Drug, you're more of a sexy, seductress, mystery girl, and you barely crack a smile in that video. So
Right,
it
right.
took me a while to realize it was you.
Well, and with the information that we have now in terms of the internet and AI and all that, everything's accessible, and it will, whatever question you have, it'll answer immediately.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were, there I did a lot of growing up, between those two videos, and I, worked all over Europe and was really exposed, because as I said, when I was growing up, I lived in Levi 501s and Oshkosh Bagosh overalls. I was just a scruffy little gutter snipe, as my mother used to refer to me. Although she said you always had to take a hot bath every night and smell really nice and have clean jammies on. But during the day, I'd come home covered in, you name it. She said I used to pull branches out of your hair. I swear to God, I thought I'd find a bird's nest in there because you were always up in the trees climbing. Um,
That's funny.
but I did a lot of growing between the two, and they really did want the characters. David directed both of the videos,
Hmm.
and um, they did want a difference between the two characters. They wanted something that had sort of evolved. And then I can't remember what video it was. It was either the Heart of Rock and Roll or Do You Believe in the Power of Love, whatever it was.
Power of Love, yeah.
I was supposed to do their third video, and I was back in Europe, and the shooting schedule crossed over by 2 days, and the clients that I was doing a catalog for would not release me from my commitment. And if it wasn't something that big, I never would have asked. And my agents really went to bat for me, and the clients just said, "No, we want her, and we've booked her, and we've got her." So that was a little heartbreaking, but it all turned out well. I think their
Yeah.
videos were really, really well done. So
It was probably the If This Is It video, which was filmed at Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk.
right, right, right. I believe that was the next one. Keep in mind, this is, we're going on, 45, 50 years
40 years almost.
later. I'm lucky I remember where my car keys are.
So, getting more into television, you were on Knight Rider. How was that experience?
Um, it was wonderful. I learned very quickly, once again, my dance experience, really, also, I'm sure what comes into it is, fear of failure. Of when I memorize the script, and that is something that you have to work at. Some people might have a photographic memory, um, but memorizing scripts is like any other muscle. The more you
Hmm.
do it, the stronger it becomes. The more you work it, the stronger it becomes. And I really threw myself into class. I wasn't playing around. Every assignment that I was given, every book I was told to read, on method acting, anything to do with learning about the actor's studio, all of that, I just absorb like a giant sponge. So when I step onto a set, I not only know my lines, I know your lines, I know, back
Hmm.
and forth, back and forth. So
Yeah.
if we're rolling and it's a great take, and, if another actor drops a line or whatever, I can pick it right up and keep moving. And then if they're happy with the take and the other actor's okay with that, we can move on because, as you know, in filming, time is money. And so you work very hard to, hit the mark, every single time. So
Hmm.
Knight Rider was a huge, because I think it was the second or third thing that I did.
Yeah.
It was a big growing experience for me. And David Hasselhoff at that point was married to Catherine Hicklin, who would down the road become one of my closest friends. Now,
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't meet Catherine on the set when I was shooting Knight Rider, and that was really fun because we were on location out in the desert and Kit, and it was a gas. And David was a pleasure to work with. He was very very entertaining to say the least.
Hmm.
Funny as heck, and he was actually very encouraging as well.
Yeah.
And so by the time I met Catherine, they had already divorced, but Catherine and I became very close friends. So it was great. I love to work, Connie. I'm
Hmm.
a person that I love traveling. I love going on vacation, but I don't like being gone too long.
Hmm.
I start to chomp at the bit. Although when you go to Europe, it's best to, if you can do it, stay there for at least a month.
Hmm.
And my sister has a home. My sister Bethany Atherton has a home in the south of France, and I used to take my girls for July and August when they were younger,
Hmm.
and they got out of school every year, so they had the whole European experience. But any other vacation when I'm traveling, 2, 3 weeks, I start getting like I need to get back to work. I need to be productive. So I love to work, and I have never ever complained. Even if a call time is 3 o'clock in the morning, I have never been unhappy about my alarm going off and getting to work because I absolutely love what I do, and I have so much gratitude that I am a card carrying SAG after member, and I've had my SAG card since 1982.
Wow.
So I am very grateful to have been able to do what I've done for so many years.
That's awesome. You got to share a scene with George Burns at the end of his Christmas Carol Comedy Week episode, and I saw it on YouTube. I cracked up. The fact that he's like almost 90 by this point, and you're leaving with him, I was
Nice
just,
outfit I was wearing, huh?
oh, it was very, very revealing, and I loved it. And I love it. He's
There's a
like,
lot of cleavage going on there.
yeah, and he's like, have a nice holiday. I know I will.
He was another. I mean, if anybody had ever told me I was gonna, have the ability to work with an icon like that, he just blew me away. And at age 90, sharp as a friggin' tack,
Yeah.
sharp as a tack, funny as hell, just spot on with the comments and the comebacks.
Hmm.
And I'm just so grateful I had that experience. I can check that off my bucket list. And I also worked with George Clooney back in the day when, George hadn't started doing, hadn't become the icon that he is. I always say George
Hmm.
is like a Chanel suit. He never
Yeah.
goes out of style ever. He just gets better with age. But he had a series. I think it was called Sunset Beat, and there was a handful of actors, and they were undercover detectives, Harley riding, leather coat wearing, undercover detectives, and I did a guest star on that,
Yeah.
and had the chance to work with him. And I knew from, just sitting and talking to him for 5 minutes, I just thought to myself, this guy's going to be huge. He's going to be huge.
Yeah.
He has that it factor. He is so incredibly intelligent and, so just beautiful to look at. But he is just the whole deal. And that was a really wonderful experience to be able to work with him as well.
Yeah, and that was directed by Carl Gottlieb, who wrote Jaws.
Yep.
It's so
Yep.
ironic that one of the scariest movies of its day was written by a comedian. You know?
I know, right? How funny is that? And
Yeah.
it's really true. I don't know if you've ever read the play, or they eventually made a movie of it, with the 6 degrees of separation. It is really
Uh-huh.
true that I really feel that everyone is connected to everyone else by 6 people.
Oh
And I
yeah.
believe that theory because, the older you get, the more that theory is proven correct, at least to me in my little world.
Well, back then there was no internet. It was a small world. Everybody knew each other.
Exactly.
You know, it's crazy now because it seems like everybody's being divided by the internet. But that's a whole nother story. You were,
It is that what
mhm,
that there's so many positive things about the internet and AI, and there's so many negative things about it as well.
right.
And I am not, it's terrible. I really stepped away from social media for quite some time. I lost 4 people very close to me in an 8-month period, and I went through probably the most difficult stretch of road that I ever had when that happened. And one of them
Uh,
was my beautiful mother, Mary,
mhm.
and then my 24-year-old nephew, Wells, and my best friend, Mary Anderson, who was the PR person on Santa Barbara.
Uh,
That's how we became friends. And another very close high school friend, Melissa Merrill, people so incredibly dear to me in an 8-month period. And I was like, I don't even know if I can get out of bed. It was really, really difficult for me to climb out of that dark place. I actually got myself into a grieving group therapy with other women, and worked through a grieving process. But I stepped away, and then COVID hit, and I really stepped away from social media. And my God, has it changed? Since coming back in and launching Tyler Fordham and my podcast that we're doing.
mhm.
Um, it's just changed so dramatically, and I just see and what you're saying, it is a whole nother conversation, but there's many positive things about it, but there's so many negative things as well, Tommy. I am in agreement with that.
Absolutely.
So, it's like anything else, everything in moderation, in my opinion.
You were on the short-lived Corey Haim sitcom Roomies. I know Corey's sister Carrie. What was he like to work with?
He was a hoot. He was at that age. I mean, how old was he then? I don't
He
remember
was
how
like
old he was, but he
16,
was young.
I think
Yeah,
16.
he was very young. And when you're that age, the entire universe revolves around your own navel. We've all
Yeah.
been there and done that. Me, 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 me is my favorite song. But he was funny and very entertaining, and completely inappropriate in a couple situations. But like, not anything overtly, but
Hmm.
being his 16-year-old oats, and boy did he go on to do very well.
Hmm.
But another great experience. Every job I've ever had, I feel, is an opportunity to grow and expand in even difficult scenarios. If you're working with difficult people, or a difficult director, or a difficult producer, or the dialogue needs to be reworked or whatever, there's always something to learn from it and to glean from it. And you can either get frustrated and pissed off, or you can look at it as an opportunity to change something about yourself. And I really do approach life that way. I really, that's a
Yeah.
but also do what you love and love what you do, and you'll never work a day in your life. So,
Yeah. I just
but it was a
love.
great experience.
Yeah, I've seen
And
the
why am I having? I'm having a senior moment. His co-star, who is just a phenomenal actor,
Burt Young.
um,
Burt
Burt
Young.
Young,
Yeah.
and there was the other. At any rate, somebody made the comment when it got canceled. Well, I guess I'll see you guys down at the unemployment office, and we all started laughing. It was just hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that show. It was probably, in I don't know how many years. I'd like to get my hands on that.
They're all on YouTube. They're all.
I've got some work to do here.
They're all on YouTube.
I know. My partner Tyler Ford is so funny. When I'm having a bad day, and I don't mean to take away from what you're doing, but when we first started out I had not been in front of the camera for so long. And granted, it's not a television or a film camera, but it's a camera nonetheless. So we're taping, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so rusty. This is an instrument that needs to be worked out. I don't know if I remember how to do this. Did I ever know how to act or this or that? And he would dig up material from shows that I had been on, and he would send me clips. And I was so grateful because it was like, oh, wow, I guess I do know how to do this. Okay, I guess I can still do this. All right. It's just rusty. Everything needs to be greased up a little bit. So that's good to know that everything, I knew that. I just, I forget when in my busy day-to-day life that I can find all these things on YouTube.
You got to be on The Facts of Life with young Penelope Ann Miller and Leela Rochon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was that?
And Lisa. That was wonderful. And that was a great experience for me because when you put a cast of young women all together in a scene and on a set, and most of the drama takes place in the hair and makeup room. It always does, or in the wardrobe room.
Yeah.
That's where you learn to maneuver and to be politically correct. And everybody was pretty nice on that show, but there was friction that has to be worked through.
Yeah.
And I always find that I love to be the peacemaker. I love to be the person that brings people together. And, and I'm a firm believer of really having straightforward, honest conversations, but say it like you mean it, don't say it meanly.
Yeah.
To work through things so that everything flows. But there was definitely some tension a couple of times on that set.
Yeah.
But still, once again, it was and that was actually my own dress. They asked me if I could bring a couple of dresses down with me. They had wardrobe for me, but they loved the dress that I wore.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was an Eileen Fisher dress. That was my wardrobe for the show, but God, that was a million years ago, too. I'm dating myself. Wow. Okay, what else have you got for me? What else are you pulling out of the skeleton box?
You had a recurring role on Jake and the Fat Man.
Oh yeah, that was a wonderful experience, and that was a very last minute, spur of the moment. I think they had cast an actress, and I can't remember if the director who came on saw the tape and didn't like her.
Mm-hmm.
My agents called me and they said, how fast can you get to Universal? And I was living out in Venice Beach at the point. I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, Sienna Sophia. I wasn't showing yet, but and I'm like, well, I've been out in my garden. I'm sweaty. I have, no makeup on, and I'd have to. She goes, you don't have time to shower. Just throw on something cute, and put on some lipstick and go. And I was literally, putting on a little blush and mascara, whatever, in my rearview mirror as I was driving to Universal. I flew over there, and I was the last girl they were seeing, and, did the audition. And I think they actually had Joe in there. I read with Joe. They wanted to see the chemistry between the two characters. And it was great. And by the time I got back home, once again, I'd gotten a call from me saying, you booked it. You're on a plane to Hawaii because we shot on location in Hawaii in like 3 days. I'm like, what? So that was wonderful. The director, whose name escapes me at the moment, was British and very, very proper, and also just, that wickedly funny British humor, which I just absolutely love.
Me too.
And Joe was a dream to work with. He's a very serious actor, and somebody who loves to rehearse as much as I do. I love to rehearse a scene front, back, and sideways, and then just let it be. And nothing, hopefully the further in advance you can do that, the better. And then step onto a set fresh and just, tear the scene apart. So, and how wonderful to be shooting on location in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad. We also shot on location in Hawaii. I'm
Yeah.
Young and the Restless. The honeymoon scenes were shot in Hawaii, and that was just an absolute gas too. So, but that was another, and it was a little tricky because I was in my first trimester, so I had
Mm-hmm.
morning sickness. So that's not fun. We have to be on a set at 7 a.m. and you're
Yeah.
running to the bathroom,
Yeah.
not feeling very well. But I got through it. And
Yeah.
oh God, although the one thing I remember, they wardrobed me in long wool pants, and we were, we had, outdoor scenes, and that was like, oh God, I'll never wear wool pants again as long as I live, and I haven't from that time forward ever worn another pair of wool trousers.
Yeah.
So, but another great experience.
Yeah. William Conrad, he was like Orson Welles. He was this big guy with a booming voice that was easily
He
recognizable.
absolutely he has a personality that commands the room, and that voice is unmistakable. He has an amazing voice.
Mm-hmm.
um he's just terrific. He's a wonderful actor.
You got to be on The Flash with David Cassidy. Were you one of the girls that like had his pictures on your wall when you were a kid?
I think I was too. My mom, because where I grew up, I didn't really have access to those, Teen Beat magazines or whatever. But
Yeah.
yes, I had the biggest crush on David Cassidy. I watched The Partridge Family religiously. And, I don't know if you remember in magazines, you could join a record club and
Oh yeah.
order like 12 albums for a nickel. You take the nickel to the whatever, and I did that behind my father's back. I know so many people who did that,
Yep.
stories about their parents. And one of the first album I ordered was on my list was the Partridge Family album. And I've had, who didn't have a crush on David Cassidy back then?
Yeah.
That voice, and he was, just another beautiful human being. Um, and yeah, that was another I think it was a very last minute audition when I booked that. And Danny Vilson and Paul DeMeo, the executive producers, writers, and Danny directed. And John is one of the kindest human beings on the planet, an absolute
Mm-hmm.
doll. That was very last minute as well. And I actually ended up getting a series out of doing that guest star when they hired me to do, uh, God, with Rick Springfield. I apologize to Danny and Paul right now and it'll come to me in a moment. But that was a great opportunity, and that was, there was it was a fairly large part, and to be able to work with the people that I did was really incredible. Although we did shoot on location down in the Los Angeles train station, downtown LA. And when I walked out, because we did a night shoot all night long into the wee hours of the morning until they had to wrap because the trains were starting. And I walked out to my car, and my car had been broken into. My window had been smashed. They stole, back then I had a Walkman. They
Uh-huh.
stole my dry cleaning. They ripped the stereo out of my dashboard. I walked back in, and Danny and Paul were talking to one of the lighting guys, or one of the sound engineers. And I
Mm-hmm.
just walked up, and Danny looked at me and he goes, "What's wrong?" And I just started crying hysterically. "Somebody broke into my car and they smashed my window.
Oh God.
Oh my God." And he's like, "Okay, give me the keys to your car." Got transportation, said take her home, get her home, drove me home so I could get into bed and go to sleep because you're exhausted after shooting all night. When I woke up at about 5 o'clock, to the most beautiful flower arrangement I've ever been
Oh.
sent in my entire life. It was huge. It was the size like of my dining room table, and my car being delivered with a brand new stereo, an even better stereo in it, and the window fixed, everything taken care of, and a note from Paul and Danny saying to the best guest star ever, "Thank you so much."
Oh.
So they just, once again, incredibly talented men.
Danny's a sweet
Danny and
guy.
Paul. Danny is the salt of the earth. And then, his daughter Rachel, who is,
Oh,
one of the most beautiful human beings on the planet,
I love
did very
her
well
podcast. Yeah.
also. Yeah, she's incredible. She's just another really beautiful human being. And so that was just another, just a wonderful experience. I mean, other than my car being broken into, but that turned out well. Also, they take very good care of their people.
Yes.
They're very, very conscientious about, it doesn't matter what part of the production you are, from craft service to, lighting to actors to wardrobe. They take very, very good care of their people, and I have a lot of respect for both of them.
Yeah. You did a Silk Stockings with Carl Weathers directing.
Yep, that was another fun experience. I actually forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
Mitzi and Rob were both very lovely. I had been so fortunate with the people that I have worked with, and maybe it's the way that I view, that when I walk into a situation, because I'm just so grateful to have had the career that I have had. I feel very blessed, um, that I've been able to do the amount of work that I've been able to do, and like I said, to be carry a SAG card in my wallet, I carry it proudly. Um, but they were really, they were great about rehearsing as well. I love to rehearse. I think the more you rehearse, the better a scene is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And learn how to walk and talk, don't bump into furniture, and know your lines. In the famous words of Spencer Tracy, that's the advice we give actors: show up on time, know your lines, and don't bump into furniture.
Yeah.
Which is great advice, because people. I don't think many people, if you don't understand the industry, you don't understand what goes into shooting a scene, and the blocking, how intricate blocking can be, moving on particular lines and different actions or whatever it is that you're doing, but still holding on to your internal emotional life that's going on with that particular character.
Right.
That takes practice as well. It really does. So, and that was an action-packed. God, I haven't seen it in so long. As far as far as I can remember, but they were great to work with as well. And Carl was a dream. So,
And then
all good. There's only been one time in my life, that I was shooting a feature film that a director blew up and screamed at me, and it wasn't even my fault. The wardrobe put me in the wrong wardrobe, and I will always take the fall for anybody. I will never never point a finger and say, well, it's their fault.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just take it, because I'd rather I get in trouble than somebody else. I'm very protective of whomever I'm working with, particularly, hair, makeup, and wardrobe.
Yeah.
So he blew up and yelled at me. We were going ready to, the camera was up, and he came walking, and he took one look at me. It was lit. I was in place.
Mm-hmm.
And just went off on me, screaming and yelling. And I looked at him and I said, can you step outside with me for a second? And he's like, we don't really have time. And I said, you need to step outside with me for a second. And we were shooting on location in this high rise in Los Angeles. We were up on like the 15th floor. And we stepped outside, and I looked at him and I said, do not ever, ever speak to me, yell at me, raise your voice. You have an issue with me, you pull me aside and you have a conversation with me. And I started crying. I mean, uncontrollably crying. I was so hurt and angry by him. And I said, now, if you think you're behind schedule, now you're going to have hair and makeup, have to fix my makeup and my hair, because I'm a mess. I'll be in my trailer. And I turned around, I walked down to the elevator, pushed the button, the door opened, and who stepped out but the executive producer. He took one look at me, he goes, what is wrong? And I say, go talk to your director. I'll be in my dressing room.
Oh, wow.
And I did. I went to my dressing room, and I had a really good cry, and then composed myself. He came and knocked on my door and, literally got down on one knee and apologized to me. And I said, there's nothing I'm not willing to work with you in terms of direction, what you need from me, what you want, whatever it is. And he said, well, I came to find out that it was wardrobe's fault. And I said, well, it was my fault because and I took the line. I said, I should have known. It's just that, we've jumped all over from scene to scene today just because of the location and what we're doing with lighting. And he said, that's very sweet of you to say that wardrobe was responsible. I said, please don't go yelling at anybody else.
Yeah.
Don't. So that's really the only time that's ever, happened to me. And I actually had a big scene with Woody Harrelson in Indecent Proposal, but when the original
Wow.
edit of the film was, I think, more than 2.5 hours, Sherry Lansing told Adrian, you gotta, you gotta trim this down. That's a long film.
Yeah.
So I ended up on the cutting room floor, which absolutely broke my heart, because the scenes were just incredible with Woody. Another incredible person to work with, very down to earth and real human being.
How about working?
So
How about
I
work?
have some stories.
Yeah, you sure do. You should write a book.
Yeah, that's on my list to do. The first thing's going to be my cookbook, which I'm in the process of collecting. Because as I said, that's my other passion. I mean, I probably have, Tommy, I kid you not, I have probably 3,000 pictures of because I not only cook but I bake. My mother was a phenomenal baker and baked all of our breads and cookies and cakes growing up. So I grew up, and my father was an incredible cook. As well. I grew up before being a foodie was like vogue. I grew up, and then where I grew up as well, everything, organic gardening, the Pacific Ocean, what's running then, oysters in season, salmon in season, whatever it is. My parents were always in the kitchen cooking with just an incredible amount of diverse, beautiful food.
Yeah.
So I would have got my cookbooks first on the list, but anyway.
How about working with Dick Van Dyke on Diagnosis Murder? That has to be a huge career highlight.
Oh my God! And I know I'm probably sounding repetitive.
It's okay.
He is one of the most interesting people that I've ever know. His energy the minute he walks in a room fills up a room.
Yeah.
And he is wickedly funny, incredibly intelligent. Um, what an experience! What an incredible experience that was. And I try to be very respectful of fellow artists.
Yeah.
But I was starstruck.
Yeah.
I really was. I mean, I was just like I am. When you go watching the Dick Van Dyke Show, and Mary Poppins is, one of your favorite films growing up as a child.
Yeah.
And I mean, talk about a resume. That man's done everything. He was just such a pleasure. I actually got tears in my eyes when I was around and staying for a while. He said, "It's been such a pleasure to work with you, Mr. Van Dyke." And he goes, "Are you talking to my father or to me?" Am I calling him Mr. Van Dyke? So another wonderful experience.
He's almost 100. That guy.
I know. Can you believe that? I just saw a picture of him recently. I can't remember. Maybe it was in People magazine. Um, I try and catch up on People magazine when I go to get a manicure or a pedicure, and there was a photograph of him getting a birthday cake in a. I think he was in a rehabilitation situation if he'd had surgery or something happened, but
Yeah.
his big smile on his face, glowing smile on his face. That man has lived a really, really good life and a happy life. He's just, I think his happiness being on a set with him is infectious.
Yes. From what I've been told, like everybody loves him. Everybody.
He is. He's a person's person. Just kind as the day is long.
So what got you into podcasting?
So I've been hired by Tyler Ford, who's now my partner on our podcast, The Significance, um, as an actress on an internet series called River Ridge. And this was back when nobody was streaming. Netflix was, they did, you got DVDs in the mail. They didn't have kiosks. Nobody was doing that. Nobody was streaming. And we met a friend of a friend. They were, heading through New Jersey to New York. and said, you got to meet my girlfriend, Signy Coleman. You will love her. And we met at a Whole Foods in Ridgewood, and we only had 15 minutes to talk, and it was instantaneous between the two of us. You know, it's when you meet somebody and you just know them. You know them from somewhere, a past life, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There's an instant connection, and she had to drag him away to another appointment. I think, actually, who was he meeting? Well, some of my fellow actors from Guiding Light. Kim Zimmer was one of them. He was on his way to meet Kim Zimmer for a role in the show. And she had to drag him away. And he said, I need to read you. I don't even think I need to read you. I want to hire you for this character. You're perfect for her. I see the energy. I see the similarities between the two personalities. And then as he brought me on and we started talking about everything, I got him connected to Abrams Artists, who I was with at the time, to go through the stable of actors for other characters on the series. And they actually let us use their conference room there for auditioning and putting actors on tape. And they were very involved in the casting process.
Yeah.
But when we started hiring union actors, we went to SAG. SAG wasn't SAG-AFTRA yet; it was just SAG. And they had no category for what we were doing. They were like, "We don't even know what. I guess we'll call it new media, because we don't really. We're going to have to create some kind of contract and figure this out." That's how new it was. So we really pioneered streaming with this series, River. And he ended up bringing me on as an executive producer because of all the ideas I had for the show. And we just became very, very close friends. And it's unfortunate that the series, the production company that we were working with, there was just some things that, something's fishy in Denmark happened, and which made it very difficult for us to go into season 2. But we've talked about revamping season 2 now that everything's streamed. And he was the one that said, "Look, I have, this incredible idea. What do you think for a podcast?" And we really wanted to try and do something relevant. We wanted to try and do something that gives back, that might actually help other people. We wanted, to do something that help people feel connected and be part of a community. I've had a really great career. And so for me to do something that might make a difference in someone else's life is hugely important at this point in my life and in my career, to give back. I'm all about, volunteering, working with others, helping with awareness, really important to me. And so, I've taken a long time off from social media, and he kind of dragged me kicking and screaming back into it. But it's kind of growing, into this really beautiful, wonderful thing. And I'm really excited about it. I mean, we have some really incredible people coming up now that we're, the show is airing, so to speak, and other people are able to see it, and see, the level of production value. We're just getting an incredible response, and we're getting to some really interesting people. We want it to be very diverse, and it's not just quote unquote famous people. We want everyday people that, because once again, everybody's connected to everybody else, and there's a domino effect.
Right.
I mean, I am grateful when I land at Newark and I go to the baggage claim to get my baggage, and I know there's a whole slew of people connected to each other that have made that suitcase, get in, come into my hands by what they do. And everybody's got a story. And I love the stories about not only, their successes, but the difficulties that they've come through, and how they've actually made lemonade out of lemons, what they've come to learn from that. What was the lesson that they learned through all of it, and how they made it, a positive attribute, within their own lives, and then therefore helping others, through their stories.
Right.
So there's going to be a really mixed bag of guests, and I think there's going to be something for everyone.
Well, I watched the.
Thank you for asking.
Of course, I watched the Brian Spicer interview the other day, and stuff. It's pretty cool. Like, how often do you drop new episodes?
Every Wednesday, 9 a.m. West Coast time, 12 p.m. East Coast time. and you can view it on YouTube. We'd be so grateful if everybody subscribed, and when you finish watching it, hit the like button. But you can hear it on a number of different platforms. When you open up the link, it leads you to different platforms that you can listen to it on. But Brian is one of my favorite people on the planet. I was fortunate enough to work with him in the X-Files, and he is just an incredibly intelligent human being, and once again, so down to earth. Just one of the kindest. Like, if you walked onto a set, you would have no idea that he was a director or executive producer. You just wouldn't know. He's so chill and so laid back. And he's got a wicked sense of humor, which I just love about him.
I have it too.
And he actually, he lived, yeah, he's very, very funny. He was in, oh God, where is it? Next to Pasadena, had a beautiful home up there, and I know this because I'd been invited to. Had just the most incredible parties, and had built this beautiful garden, outdoor patio, barbecue, covered living area with this beautiful swimming pool with a waterfall and a jacuzzi with a cave behind the waterfall with a huge flat screen theater, like drive-in theater size screen that would come up from behind the waterfall to screen movies back there. I mean, he had the best parties. And then when he was shooting for Hawaii Five-O and then, started executive producing, he ended up finally relocating to, and I always thought Hawaii would be a perfect fit for him because his garden in the Los Angeles area was so beautiful and full of tropical plants and flowers. He's got an incredible eye, aesthetic eye. So he ended up buying a house there, which I think he, completely redid from ground floor, and then built a home there and bought a recording studio, Island Sound Studios there, that he is now the owner of, and his brother Kyle works there as, in music production, and, Kyle's wonderful as well. So he's trying to get a bill passed in Hawaii to improve, the film industry there. The film industry there, he talked about it in his interview, it's like family there. Everybody's really connected. And he said it's just, and it's true. And the 2 times I shot on location in Hawaii, the local people there that I work with were, oh God, I mean, I would shoot in Hawaii any day of the week, anytime. What a wonderful group of human beings, and very laid back, very chill. But he's getting moving into sound production. He's got 2 music venues there, which are I think he's only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. That one's a speakeasy, one's a cafe club atmosphere, and he's a cat that always lands on his feet.
Yeah,
and he's doing really well, and that just, when there's people that you love and you care about, you're just so happy when they do well. So
yeah.
But the studio is like iconic. Some of the people that have produced there and done music there, from Beyonce to, I mean, it's like a who's who. So I wish him the very best of luck with that. I think he's going to do really well with that. Who wouldn't want to go to Hawaii and, record an album? I would, if I could sing.
I'm curious, how did you get such a unique name like Signy?
My mother said when she was carrying me that I was she said, you were so active in my womb, from, the moment I could feel you moving around in there. And she said I would see little, heel prints and hand prints pushing against my belly. Like you couldn't wait to get out and greet the world. She said, I knew you were going to have a very strong personality, and I had to give you a very strong name. And she had been given a book of Scandinavian mythology, and one of the legends in the book was Signy's wedding feast.
Huh.
And Signy was a Scandinavian queen with her mother died, as an infant. So she was raised by her father and 7 brothers, and she was betrothed to a king of another country, and they sailed to the country. And the moment that they were married, she imprisoned her father and 7 brothers. And of course, in any good Scandinavian mythology, there's always a Beowulf So her father and brothers were locked in a stockade every night outside, and every night a she
Huh.
wolf would come. And first one that was eaten was her father, right down the line until she had one brother left. And she bribed one of the maids. Back in the days, as the legend goes, there tapestries lined all the rooms, the bedrooms in particular, to keep the cold out. And she bribed one of the maids to lock her and her husband in the room so they couldn't escape, and lit everything on fire, killing her husband, sacrificing herself so her one remaining brother was freed and went back to their country, and actually historically ended up being one of the greatest kings that the country had ever known.
Hmm.
A very fair and just king. And my mother said, I just love the name. So, Signy Christine. So that's right now. I did not care for my name as a child because nobody could pronounce it. And it was, people couldn't spell it or pronounce it. And there was all kinds of things. Back then, the Seaman and the Sig Monster was a big Saturday
Yeah.
morning kids program.
Yeah.
So, all kinds of nicknames,
Yeah.
you could come up with to make fun of me. And I was very skinny and tall as a child. So my nickname, the boys would all call me Spider Legs. And they had a whole slew of nicknames for me. But as I got older, I loved it because it's a very unusual name, very different.
Wow, I like
So
it.
that's where that came from.
It's adorable. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
So real quick, we play by secret silly game. This is a
Okay.
series of silly slumber party questions. It's no win or lose,
Okay.
just pure fun. And how the game works,
Okay.
Signy, is I ask you the question, you answer it, and then you ask me that exact same question, and I answer it. And
Okay.
feel free to comment on the answers because they might be funny.
Okay. I'm
Signy,
sure they. I suspect that they will be, Tommy.
okay. Signy, are you ticklish?
Very. I am, but I tell people that I'm not,
Yeah.
so that they won't try and tickle me. And the first 30 seconds that you tickle me, I can put on a really straight, stoic face, so you give up and
Hmm.
stop trying. Now, wait a second, Tommy. Are you ticklish?
I am very ticklish, and I wish I had your discipline to do that. I can't. I mean, I'm very sensitive to tickling.
Okay, so when we meet in person, watch out, dude. You
Yeah.
gave me your trade secret.
Yeah.
Of course, I gave you mine as well. So what's six of one, half dozen of the other.
Is your belly button an innie or an outie?
I have an innie, a little. I have a very tiny belly button. I
Oh,
actually used to have a pierced belly button, but when I got pregnant with my second daughter, Isabella, the doctor looked at me and said, "You know, spring chicken. You might want to get rid of the belly button." And I said, "All right, I guess I can start acting like a grown up now." And what about you? You got an innie or an outie?
I also have an innie.
Innies rock.
Yep. What color are your toenails painted?
That's a really great question. It's sort of a okay. What are the girls that does my nails? Nicole at Best Nails in Ridgewood, who I just adore,
Hmm.
has an iPhone watch with a band that's sort of this. It's a combination between a pink beige. It's like a Chanel pink beige.
Hmm.
That Coco Chanel used that color in a lot of her clothing designs, other than black. So it's kind of like a beige pink Chanel color
Nice.
ish. They're usually red. Red is my go-to number because I love red. But
Hmm.
I decided to go a little more low key. And what color are your toenails painted, Tommy?
They are clear colored, and when you see them in the sun, you can see rainbows.
Do you really? Are they really painted?
I started painting my toes when I was 13.
That's awesome. I love it. You go right on.
Thank
Do you
you.
go and get pedicures?
I used to, but for a lot of reasons, including the prices, inflation and all, I don't go anymore. I just do them on my own.
But you loved it, right? Like I always think
Oh
men are
yeah.
really smart when they go to get, because you get your feet rubbed and you get a massage, and they with lotion and oil, and you just fall asleep when they're working on your feet. I love it. Well, good for you. Honesty, I love it.
Yep, I loved it. What would you say is your best personality trait?
My integrity.
Oh, love it.
I don't take shortcuts. I speak the truth. I believe that when you tell the truth, that lying goes through me like a hot knife through butter when I catch people lying. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care for it. And I no longer trust them. And my father raised us to believe that you are as good as your word, and your word should mean everything. Your word should hold water.
I agree.
So I would say that and empathy. That's a toss up because, growing up, I rescued every animal known to mankind, and I'm still doing it to this day. Something my parents let me do, God bless them, even because of where I grew up, a baby seal and a baby goat
Mm-hmm.
on different occasions. So I have tremendous empathy for underdogs. I just do.
Oh, and for me, um,
Yes, for you. I
uh,
was actually thinking of the way that I could pose that question, but what do you feel is your strongest character trait?
I have empathy and I have no filter.
See, I love that because that goes along the lines of honesty, right?
It does.
Like you're gonna speak your truth, and it's not that I'm trying to make anybody feel uncomfortable, and I will always try and be, unless you really piss me off, I'll try and be politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
I really try and, but I'd rather have somebody speak their truth to me than candy coat something for me.
Yes.
That serves no purpose, right?
Right. I mean, I try to give people closure if I'm going to let them down. I mean, there's no letting them down gently. There really isn't. But if you give them closure as for an alternative, of what they can do in the
Mm-hmm.
situation, I think that says a lot about the character.
I really agree, Tommy, and I really respect that in you because it's not an easy thing to do, especially in the entertainment industry. You know that.
Oh God.
People will
Yeah.
smile to your face and stick a knife in your back. I'm not saying everybody does that, but it's a pretty, the industry is pretty notorious for that.
It's a
So
it's a pretty
I have a
common
lot of
practice.
respect for you. Yep, yep.
Um, what is your guilty pleasure?
Oh my God, that's so hard. Okay, I am a film crazy person. I grew up watching all the old films. There
Same
used to
here.
be a TV station,
Same here.
Channel 36,
Yep.
Bogart and Bacall,
Oh,
Spencer Tracy,
I
Katharine
love you.
Hepburn. Oh my God, seriously. And my friend John Moore, John and Val Moore, he is one of the only people that I know that is an incredibly crazy film buff like I am, and he can go toe to toe with me with films,
Oh, you should
the
see my
plot, the
collection.
stars. Pardon?
You should see my collection. I got all the
Oh,
old
I love
films.
it.
Yeah.
Good for you. I love that. So watching films definitely, and I'm a total foodie. I love to eat. I take great pleasure in eating. I'm not a fast food person. Um, Food is like a ritual for me. So anything that's chocolate, good chocolate and films are guilty pleasures for me. And what about you, my dear? Do you travel along the same line? Well, films
Yes.
clearly. What's your favorite? Now, let me ask you a question. What do you think are your top three favorite films, or at least number one favorite film?
Back to the
That's a
Future.
that's a hard that's a hard question, right? Back to the
Yeah.
Future,
Back to
great film.
Back to the Future. The Breakfast Club. I love One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, that brilliant.
Bonnie and Clyde. Oh my God, the list goes on and on.
It does.
The
It really does.
Graduate.
Those are great films. I watched The Graduate about a month ago. I own that on DVD also. Such a great film.
Love it. Yeah.
There's
And
so many though. It's so hard. I mean, and I collect films as well,
mhm.
and they're like a good book to me. They're like my friends. Like depending on if
Oh
I'm
yeah.
sad, if I'm happy, if I'm feeling melancholy, I'll go into my collection and I'm like, I really need to watch this film tonight, and I'll put it on and curl up with some good chocolate or popcorn and just lose myself in a film. So good for you.
If you could have anything named after you, what would it be?
A library. If I ever get to a place in my career again, or if I were to win the lottery, the first thing that I would want to do, other than taking care of my immediate family and friends, is I would make a point of building libraries in places where children could have access to books and art projects and story time, because I grew up in libraries. My mother, from the time we could scratch our name on a library card, my mother took us to the library. I still go to the library. I love my library in Upper Saddle River. I check out movies. I check out books.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I just want complete silence and a change of scenery, I go and work on the computers that they have there.
Yeah.
I love the library. So I would build libraries for children so that they could have books. And of course, I do the grand tour of Europe again. So I'd be all over Europe traveling in style. But no, really, my number one priority, I've always said that, would be to give something back so that people that can't even afford to buy a book or have access to books could travel the way that I did through, different stories and places and times through books.
Nice. And then for me?
Yes, for you, I was actually thinking, I guess it would be, I was going to rephrase it, but yes, what would your guilty pleasure be?
Oh yeah. The guilty pleasure. That's right. I forgot. And then, what the named after? Oh yeah,
Right.
the guilty pleasure is I love eating pizza and watching a raunchy sex comedy movie that makes me laugh out loud.
That's honest. I love it.
And what I would have named after me is a vibrator.
You go, girl. Woody Allen says it best. Masturbation is sex with someone I love.
Exactly. Yes. Oh God, Annie Hall is my favorite romantic comedy.
Oh my God, that is just such a great film. I listen. I love Stardust Memories too.
Me
That scene
too.
where the little boy with the cape
Yep.
steps outside and cuts his arms up and takes off. I laugh so hard.
Uh,
And then the scene where the two trains pull up going in opposite directions, and there's a huge party going on in one of the trains. And Woody Allen's sitting on the train where he looks around. There's all these very, morose, sad, strange-looking people, and he keeps looking over the other train and his train, and the train takes off.
yeah.
Yes, that looks like, wait, I'm trying to get on that train. I can't get on that. That's just, his movies are brilliant.
They
Whether you
are.
like him or not as a person, I think his films are brilliant.
Me too. They're brilliant. And then my favorite question, is there a stinky smell that just makes you gag?
Stinky smell that makes me gag. That's really a tough one, because I even love like European stinky cheeses. I eat many different. I have a huge love affair with cheese. Um, okay, so I think I'm acclimated now. My other passion is gardening, and I've
Uh-huh.
taken the piece of property in the front of our home, and I've been landscaping. It's a 9-year project now, an English garden. And
Yeah.
I grew up with my mother using fish emulsion, which is a liquid, rotted fish
Mm-hmm.
that you mix with water, and you fertilize your plants with it. And the plants go nuts for it. It's one of the best fertilizers I've ever used. You can get it at Home Depot, by the way. I have like massive size containers of it. And it takes a little while for the smell to dissipate. And when you
Yeah.
walk in, it smells like a dead seal on the beach. And actually, I think that because I'm acclimated to it, doesn't bother me. I would say because growing up on the beach, on a beach of the Pacific Ocean,
Mm-hmm.
the smell of a dead seal, a rotting carcass on the beach,
Oh
which
yeah.
our dogs used to love to run down and roll in and then come home when I was a little girl.
Oh yeah. I'd smelled the bay and raw sewage living in the Bay Area, so I totally get it.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a really difficult one.
But
Because I was going to ask you where are you located? You're from the Bay Area originally? You're not there anymore, though.
I left San Mateo in 2017, and currently I'm living in Modesto.
Oh, I love Modesto. I shot on location there. That's where we did the farm scenes for or was it Fresno? I think it was Modesto for
Mm-hmm.
Hope Adams Newman on Young and the Restless. Those
Nice.
exterior farm scenes. But you grew up in an area where it had that smell. So that's your favorite stinky smell is sewage.
Well, that's one of them. Farts and feet are big ones for me.
Oh yeah, when somebody has really bad gas, that's awful.
Yeah.
That's like Okay, not to be rude or anything, but do you think you could at least step in the other room and shut the door? Do
Right.
us all a favor here, please. And I've never smelled stinky feet, so I'm really grateful for that one. But I will absolutely take your word for it, Tommy.
Interesting. Interesting. I have a couple jokes for
Something
you.
is something it's that is not on my bucket list for certain.
Yeah.
No, I have one question for you. I'm turning the interview around.
Okay.
What is your top priority on your bucket list that you haven't yet to do?
God. Like in terms of interviewing people or just in
Just in
general?
life, period. In life, period. It could be the one person you want to interview. It could be a place you haven't traveled to. Whatever it is, what your top that you never tried, jumping out of an airplane with a parachute, whatever
Oh,
it
no
is.
thanks. No thanks. I could never do that. I would love to travel. I'd love to go to New York. I've never been to New York. Um, I'd like to go to, God, lots of places. I mean, I've been to Reno, but I'd love to go to Las Vegas. So, yeah, traveling would definitely be a big bucket list thing.
Okay, good. Well, let's try and make that happen for you. Let's put it out there to the universe. Visualize it, see it, say it, and make it happen.
Let's hope.
Which is something I believe in. I really do. I believe in visualization. I
Yes,
really do.
let's hope I get to travel in the future. I got a couple jokes for you.
Okay.
What do you call a boy that doesn't masturbate?
Boring.
A liar.
I have an audience. I have friends coming for dinner tonight that I'm going to tell that joke to. That's a good one.
Here's another one. Okay. What do you call, okay, what kind of meat does a priest eat on Friday?
I'm not even going to go near that one. I have no idea, but my imagination's going crazy.
None. It's an
Oh
old
my
one.
goodness, you are funny. You are uncensored. Excellent. I
Thank
love
you.
it. If you can't have a sense of humor in life, what is the point?
Exactly, that's what I
Seriously.
say. That's what I say. Everybody's got to have a sense of humor, especially
If you
now.
don't, life is you better believe it. You know, it's like the Wild West out there, and you better have a sense of humor, and you better be able to look at yourself and laugh at yourself too. I mean, one of the greatest gifts that I ever gave myself, like, when you finally come through your 20s and you get over yourself,
Hmm.
being so serious and being so driven and, whatever it is, and you can look back at things that have happened to you and you can laugh about it. What a gift, right?
Right.
Hugely important.
Signy, thank you so much for coming on today. You are just amazing.
Oh, Tommy, thank you so much. And right back at you. You were wonderful to speak with. And I'm so glad we were able to make this happen. And thank you for, being persistent with me. I really appreciate it.
My
And it's
pleasure.
really a pleasure and an honor to be on your podcast. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. You have
Oh,
a great night over there. Tell those jokes and let me know what they thought.
I will. I will. Absolutely. Stay in touch, Tommy. Let's stay in touch,
Yes,
okay?
stay in touch.
All right. Thank you, dear. Have a great evening.
You
Be
too.
kiss.
Mwah. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Well, there you have it. Signy Coleman, ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my god, I feel like I made a new friend. She is just so fucking awesome. I'm so glad that we could talk today. And by the way, I don't know what that buzzing noise was, for, the middle to towards the end of the interview, but we got disconnected about an hour in, and then we reconnected, and then the buzzing went away. And I hope it's tolerable. I mean, it was tolerable on my end, but I was still like, what the fuck is that? But nevertheless, it was a great interview. And like I said, I feel like I made a new friend. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.